Hi Rob, welcome to Sapphire offices, but more importantly, welcome to the Sapphire family. We are very excited to be leading your Series A financing with ANZA. Maybe we can start with, how did you get into this and what is your background and what made you start Defense Unicorns?
Yeah, absolutely, Jay. For me personally, my co-founders, a lot of our early employees, it's really about solving our own problems. A lot of us worked in the Department of Defense for a number of years, and a lot of people don't realize this, even though we spend a lot of money on defense, the technology that we field normally is very outdated, especially on the software side, especially on more modern systems, talking things like generative AI. Most of the tools that warfighters use in these deployed environments, it's not uncommon to be on, outdated like Windows XP systems. And so after living that experience ourselves for, really over a decade and trying while active duty to actually, try to solve some of these problems, we really came to the realization that it's not going to be solved unless the solutions are fully productized. It's not going to be solved unless the solutions are fully in the open source. So that way industry, the defense industrial base, just really everybody has, hands on the tools that make it easy for warfighters and national security systems to actually start deploying and leveraging modern capabilities.
So maybe you can talk a little bit about your journey, all the stuff you did within the military in kind of trying to take military and all the different branches to the 21st century in terms of software.
Yeah, absolutely. So loved physics when I was in high school. Actually joined the military to pay for my physics degree. My grandfather served in the military, so I was always, very close, but it was never my intention to serve beyond 4 years. But somewhere along the way, just truly fell in love with the mission, fell in love with the people, and really felt like I could make a difference. So I kept serving for longer and longer. Along the way, got my PhD in physics, but in most physics programs, what you find is that you end up writing a lot of software, you producing a lot of code, and so for military standards, they considered me a quote expert. No physicist will ever say that they're a good developer, but obviously you have to write some code to solve your physics problems. But the Department of Defense is has such a talent gap between commercial and industry on what it means to be a software expert that I found myself in a very unique experience, as well as my co-founders and a lot of other people at Defense Unicorns, to where we really looked at to lead the future of these systems.
Nowadays, defense tech has become this big buzzword within Silicon Valley, right? And there are a lot of companies trying to kind of, get into this space. What is unique about Defense Unicorn? What is it that you're doing differently? And what is kind of the 5-year future of the company?
Yeah, absolutely. First thing, I think it's absolutely incredible to see the venture community start taking and having portfolios of companies that are focused on defense tech. Being involved in this ecosystem for a long period of time. It wasn't that long ago to when VCs didn't think of this as a real a market that anyone was attracted to. There really was no investments coming in, and I think it really comes to it's one of the last markets not to get disrupted.
That's right.
Here's if you look at the car industry, you look at space. You look at all of these different markets, and there's been massive amount of disruption over the last 5, 10, 20 years. When you look at the defense industrial base, you haven't really seen that disruption. And I think that's actually one of the things that sets Defense Unicorns, apart. And that's that when we look at the space, to us, defense isn't a market, defense is a mission. And so we're always trying to paint the picture and understand what technology can we bring to actually just not make us better, but make the entire community better. We want startups who are actually focused or want to work with defense. We want to make it easier. We want the larger primes to be leveraging our technology so that way the government gets what they get a good return on their dollar. Because there's all kinds of threats. Defense Unicorns, there's our entire vision is focused on freedom and independence. And we see national security as this kind of like really the thing that's ensuring freedom and independence, certainly here in the United States, but really globally. And so if our national security systems can't get the capabilities that they need, then it really puts us at a disadvantage and really puts freedom and independence at risk. And so as we look out and say, hey, what are we going to do over the next 12 months? What we are really looking at is generative AI systems. Obviously, it's a huge hot topic item, and a lot of people say, I think there's a lot of concerns around the security and safety of generative AI systems. But the reality is you never want to enter an unfair fight to where your adversary has aggressively matured and adopted something,
That's right.
and you haven't.
Yes.
And so you have to balance the safety and security of these systems with the speed of delivery.
Yeah.
And as a company, we've done an amazing job. We have a number of classified deployments in different areas supporting a number of different operations from around the world.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff that people are picking up on the news, all of those real-world systems have real-world needs. Most of them have a need for generative AI.
Yeah.
How do you actually deploy generative AI securely in order for the United States Department of Defense to actually use those capabilities in wartime environments?
And no, every time we talk to any of your mission heroes or your customers, they couldn't stop raving about how great the company was, the culture was, the people they interacted with. I know, and I think it also helped that I think a lot of the folks actually served actively in military, and they kind of know the pain, right, of these people going through, so they can actually not only talk the language, but kind of empathize with all the issues that people have and try to solve these problems.
Yep, absolutely. It's hard to even realize how bad the problem is until you've lived it. And the people who are stuck there today, they're just desperate for solutions.
Yeah.
And so we happen to be very fortunate to love technology, be very good on the tech side, but to also really, really understand what the mission needs.
Talk a little bit also the open source, kind of the ethos you have. It's very similar to actually all the open source developers, where you don't want to actually build proprietary code, and the reason why you think it's even more critical for all the military and all the defense kind of work, because of the longevity of the project.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. A lot of people struggle to figure out how the Department of Defense can adopt their technology. But the reality is that the primary reason, in my opinion, is that the program managers within the Department of Defense, they're looking at not a 2, 3, 5-year program, but they're looking at a 10, 20, 50, some cases 100-year program. Just take the Air Force. The average jet in the Air Force is 30 years old. And so if you're a program manager developing the next generation aircraft, you're really looking at a 20, 30, 40-year horizon. And when you're looking at that type of horizon, you become very concerned and risk adverse to adopting certain technologies that you really don't have a good idea of where it's going to be in 5 or 10 years. So of course the very, very, very large companies, the Microsofts of the world, for example, it's very easy for them to take that risk. But if you're even a fast-growing startup, or even recently IPO'd or Series C, you may think you're very large, but from their perspective, it's very concerning. And so having lived that, we've always been to go back to our core ethos, it's about freedom and independence. And a part of independence is having the ability to own your own baseline. And so the technologies that we produce are really focused on open source. Why? It's because we don't ever want our mission heroes to feel like they're stuck. We don't want them to ever be concerned, hey, what's going to happen with this small company, because it's on things like Apache 2 licenses that they can just leverage, and they don't have to have these concerns of what's going to happen to these small companies.
Also, I think the Department of Defense also wants agility, right? They want to be, like as you said, the generative AI stuff, right? They want to be able to use that and let the people out in the front lines be more effective. And it always has been, it's not only has been the cost, but also the time it took some of these technologies to be deployed to the Department of Defense. And I think that is one of the areas that you're solving that, because you're agile, you're kind of outside, but you also understand what is needed, and you kind of go in and deploy this and do this for them at a much faster pace than anybody else doing it right now, all the defense primes and everybody.
Yep, a lot of people view the problem as a policy and bureaucracy problem, and that's very different than how Defense Unicorns views it. The bureaucracy is a problem. Don't get us wrong, but the bureaucracy alone is not the reason why our fleets of ships do not have modern software. The reason why the technology that we go to war with is outdated is because of actual technical issues. And those are the things that people don't talk about as much. There's air-gap software delivery challenges that Defense Unicorns helped innovate around. There's integration of systems challenges. So if you go talk to a typical enterprise, they may struggle because they may have dozens of different platforms that they have to work with. At the Department of Defense alone, you're looking at thousands of different systems. So like the complexity of alone are just, it's not that the rest of the world doesn't also have these challenges, it's just they see it from an extreme point of view. And then you add on top of it all of the compliance and security that people expect within these systems, and you combine them all up, and it becomes an absolute nightmare.
That's right.
And so you actually have to solve the core technical issues, and to go back to who we are as a company, do that in the open source so that way everybody benefits from it. And then now you can actually stare the bureaucracy in the face and see it for what it is. Yes, it's blocking you, but that's not the only reason why you're not successful.
Yeah, and it's not like enterprise you can get rid of a mainframe computer that is 30 years old. You can't get rid of a fighter jet that is 30 years old, right? You kind of have to keep that running, right? So that's a very different problem set.
Yeah, absolutely.
So talk a little bit about the culture, because I think one of the things kind of during the due diligence and during the, while we were negotiating the documents and stuff, culture kind of came up a number of times.
Yeah, it really starts with like a long-term perspective. We didn't start a company because we had this plan to exit in 2 or 3 years. We really started a company because we thought, hey, this could outlive us. This could outlive all of us. 100 years from now, Defense Unicorns could be a very, very large company. What would make a company like that successful? And it's starting with the foundation of people and culture. And so even before we had a clear product strategy, we had a strategy for how we were going to treat people. And we had a strategy for how we were going to approach culture. And it's not like we're perfect. We make mistakes like every company. But I think the people at Defense Unicorns know that we do try, and I think that gives us a leg up on the competitive side, because if you're hiring the best people, then clearly your company's going to have an advantage.
And I also find that when you talk to anybody, there's a culture, but also I think all your employees also have a mission, right? They kind of want to make the military more successful, focused, and kind of not do all the things that they have been doing in the past, right? We'll finish off with talking about Sapphire. What do you think? How can we help you? How can we expand and grow and build a company of consequence here?
Yeah, one of the things I love about Sapphire, and you, Jay, a couple things. First one is, you personally, you have a developer background, you appreciate open source. You're never going to look at our business model and really say, hey, you shouldn't be open source, because it is a core belief of ours.
That's right.
The other aspect of it is just mission focus. Like, it's our belief, you can let me know this, but you're investing in us not because of just the business, you're investing in us because you believe in what we're doing as a company.
That's right.
And with this financing, we'll be able to double and triple down on these good things that already have traction. That means the world to us. And then the last one being that you're adding to our culture. You're a culture add. You're with all of your knowledge of all the startups that you worked in, you're going to help us see the holes. And together we can come up with a better operational model that just improves what we're doing for the mission heroes that we support.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Rob.
Pleasure.
Okay, thank you.